I thought, well, to have connection and belonging, like authenticity just has to be a casualty, and I can't do
Yeah.
both. And I really felt that for a long time. And I have evolved into this place now where I'm like, no, wait a minute. It's not that authenticity precludes connection and belonging. It's a prerequisite for true connection and true belonging.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listener. Today I'm speaking with someone whose work and whose courage I have admired for a long time. My good friend, Lara Burke, mind-body empowerment coach, founder of the Sage Practice, and one of the most nuanced voices in today's chronic pain and mind-body healing landscape. Lara is a speaker for Curable Health, where she's known as a powerful voice in mind-body medicine, especially for people who live with both structural and neuroplastic conditions. And that distinction is exactly why her work matters so much. Lara has lived this from the inside out. At age 16, she underwent 17 surgeries for a rare medical condition, a lived experience that most mind-body frameworks have historically excluded. But instead of accepting that limitation, Lara has become a bridge builder inside her field, pushing for nuance, challenging overly rigid narratives, and expanding what healing and hope can mean for people who don't fit neatly into existing mind-body boxes. Last year, she was interviewed on the podcast Like Mind, Like Body, and that interview shook the table in the best way. It was honest, brave, and it departed from the status quo in ways that required vulnerability, grounded leadership, and deep emotional work behind the scenes. Today, we talk about what it actually takes to speak up when you know your truth may challenge an entire field. We explore the fear that comes with visibility, how Lara navigates the emotional aftermath of taking a stand, and what she wants others to know about offering a perspective that feels true, even when you can't control other people's responses to it. If you are someone who's been holding back a truth because you're afraid of the fallout, this episode will give you language, companionship, and permission. Lara, thank you so much for being here. This is a really special occasion for me because you and I have formed just a friendship that's very special to me, and it's unique and interesting. I'm gonna share a tiny bit about that, but first I just want to say welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
I'm so excited for our conversation, and it's one that is it flows off a conversation you and I just had as friends and colleagues on the phone recently. And one of the things we talked about was that our friendship is just laced with all these really amazing synchronicities. Like, we first met because you popped up, was it like 5 years ago or maybe more? Like, you
Yes.
popped up on Facebook and people you might know.
Oh,
why
yeah.
did I click? I don't know. Something drew me to click, and I was like, we have certain interests in common, and we both went to Amherst College, and we have friends in common. But then, like, I think it was like you also followed the Curable app, and I was like, that's really unusual. And
Oh,
somehow,
yeah.
I think I reached out to you. We had a conversation, and it was like, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. It's wild.
Yes, and more since then has unfolded. I feel like the move towards self-trust that we both have, gravitated toward over the years, there's so many synchronicities, it's really uncanny. It almost makes me believe in, like, magic or something. It's, like,
Same.
amazing,
It's
yeah.
really like that. Well, I'm sure some of the things we're kind of like opaquely referring to will probably come out in our conversation. So I'll just get us into that by asking you to please share a little with our audience about what you presently do and who you help with the work you do.
Absolutely. So I founded the Sage practice in 2020, and it's really about mind body empowerment for people living with pain or other chronic symptoms. Um, I am one of them. I am one of you if you're listening, and have been for 34 years after a very long journey with 17 surgeries, medical emergencies, all kinds of things. So it's been something that over the years I have found mind body work, finding curable pain neuroscience, learning about brain based symptoms. All of that has helped me so much, even though I have what you might call a quote structural condition. There are so many pieces of this work that have been incredibly helpful, empowering, kind of soulful, and, have made me a better person. And so I feel like I'm trying to glean those things and curate some of those things to offer others so that they might start living their lives and thriving in spite of whatever is going on in their bodies.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I'm just going to give a little side note for listeners. Listeners who've been following this podcast since the beginnings of it will likely grasp all of the references that you just mentioned. Folks who found the podcast more recently may not, because the focus of this podcast has shifted/expanded. And so in its beginnings, it was really about chronic pain and chronic symptoms and mind body tools that are designed to help us work with our nervous system, either to alleviate symptoms or to change our relationship with symptoms. That was a big journey in my life during the time when I started this podcast. And it's through those experiences that you and I connected, and we both have been, I guess, helped by and also worked for this app called Curable, which is an educational tool for this mind body approach. So just a little side note for folks who who aren't familiar with that piece of things. And then how did you, like, in as much or as little detail as you'd like to share today, what is the path that led you to this work you're doing? Because,
Mhm.
I mean, I know it's a very personal one, as it is for, as my work is for myself and is the case for most people I speak to on this podcast.
Yeah, thank you for asking because it really is at the heart of absolutely everything I do, and it's the passion behind my mission here. And it all started when I was 16. I won't get into the entire story, but let's just say at age 16, I felt like Alice in Wonderland. I was dropped into this very scary world of a medical emergency, an very, very, very rare condition that was undiagnosed. And long story short, the doctors didn't believe me. It causes exceptional pain and needs to be operated on within 6 hours, or you can lose your leg or eventually die. So I was not believed from the get-go, and when they finally realized that there was something there, it was a little too late. So I've had many, many surgeries, 17 surgeries, over the last 34 years. I live with ongoing pain from some of those structural, so to speak. That's one of those words that not everyone might get, but there's sort of a medical condition that's just ongoing and can cause pain, is there, and it's something I live with. And I think what drew me first to mind body work was the hope that maybe even all my pain could go away. If I just do
Yeah.
this work, maybe it could go away. And what I found is,
And is it okay if I interrupt a little? Also, like for those folks who are newer to this, what this mind body stuff we're talking about, it's not just that Lara was like having magical thinking, but there is this whole body of work that the two of us connected through. Um, that's all about not just managing pain, but actually alleviating it through working with the nervous system, through working with the mind body connection. And it is something that can legitimately be effective for certain types of pain. There's also a certain amount of dogmatism that one can encounter, in as with like any philosophy that's different from the mainstream, it can go into like its own dogmatic expression. And there can be this idea that, well, all pain can be alleviated. And so that's that's a little that's my synopsis of what you're referring to.
and we agree on that, right? That was one of the synchronicities, is noticing that you were sort of evolving in that direction, away from the dogmatism toward, like me, away from the dogmatism and more toward nuance and the complexity and the messiness that is
Yeah.
human life. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about is that, most things aren't as simple as a binary or, any kind of dogma. It tends to erase the complexity and the nuance that is there. And I think when we do that, no matter what kind of paradigm we're talking about, I think it basically performs an erasure. There's an erasure of us who are kind of not represented in, because if there's no nuance, there's no complexity, there's no kind of, um, it makes it hard to, make those of us who are sort of have, push against the dogma with our own lived experience. It makes it hard for us to feel seen and acknowledged.
Yeah.
And in some ways and we can talk about this, but therein lies a lot of the gaslighting that I feel like I have internalized over the years.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I hold all of what you're talking about really close to my heart. Um, and I want to come back to the kind of narrative of how you got to the work that you're doing today. Just picking up like a couple things you've said that are so particular to your story in the way that you experienced them in the very like unusual circumstances, while also being probably things that every listener is like, gosh, maybe I had a similar experience. Maybe I had a really different life experience, but I really relate to this, the sentence, I was not believed.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And then, and that this like dogmatic binary view of things, well, you've got to either be in this camp or that camp can feel like erasure.
exactly, exactly, and that's why I've pushed so hard, because people who have come to me have usually come to me because they've heard my pretty crazy story medically, and they relate, and they want someone who kind of understands that it can be more complicated. But a lot of people, self included, can go into the headspace of, it must be my fault. It must be that I didn't do the right things, or that I haven't worked hard enough. Because there is that fundamental, as part of this sort of dogmatic paradigm, there's this fundamental disbelief, or
Yeah.
like I feel like it's sort of a lack of credibility almost.
Yeah.
And when we do that, when I have internalized that, it feels almost like an emotional violence toward myself because it's
Yeah.
just so it's just dismissing my reality in a way that it fundamentally feels like it cleaves me in half, there's sort of like the presentational part and then the authentic part, which is, of course, what we'll talk about, which has, like, come up for me and been like, I gotta come out."
Yeah. You know, so I recently heard you tell your story. I mean, every time we tell our story, it's like another layer of it, right? Another iteration. And you recently told an iteration of your story in such a beautiful way on a podcast, a wonderful podcast called Like Mind, Like Body, that is hosted, I guess, by the Curable app that we were talking about earlier. Um, and something that struck me in your telling of it is that that dismissal, the not being believed, is something that you encountered early on in the very mainstream medical world,
Yeah.
and then later experienced maybe in a different flavor,
Mhm.
um, in the mind body world, which was a world where you had sought a new approach that hadn't been available to you in the medical world.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess I'd love to ask what did draw you to the mind body world? What did you find helpful? How did that lead into the work that you're doing now? And it's a long question, but like how how does a person like you find your way to your own way of understanding things through all of these different conflicting opinions, disbelief, etc.?
Yeah. Well, it's been a really messy process. It really has.
Yeah.
Long and messy, and I think in images, and sometimes I think it from the outside might look a little bit like an iceberg that, like, suddenly melts, some part drops off, but it's been a very long process, to get where I am now. And I was drawn originally, I think, because it there's so much hope in the idea that, in the brain's plasticity, that we can make changes, and we can. And for some people, that means their symptoms can be alleviated entirely. For someone like me, I did find that nervous system regulation, helps kind of turn the volume dial down a little bit on the intensity of symptoms, for me, pain. So I think what drew me was the hope, this sort of the hope that's implicit in that new neuroscience. And then it shifted, it, like you said, that it came into conflict as I have gone through the last several years. I've had a couple really major surgeries in the last few years, and it has evolved a lot, I think, because my own lived experience kept coming up against what, that mind body world was putting out there, and I kept struggling. And I guess I'll just say that I feel like for a while I struggled, almost like trying to live up to this idea
Yeah.
and trying to push myself, like, shape shift and see myself in that model. And then it just something shifted, and it's like, it doesn't fit. This has to be I have to create my own new model,
Yeah.
and which has been quite empowering because it's so much more in alignment with my reality. My inner self is like, "Thank you, you're listening, like, you believe me."
Ugh. And I know so many of like your clients and just folks who've come into contact with your work have felt a sense of that relief too, like have felt a sense of being seen and hearing someone that is making space initially for themselves to hold their own reality, and then that opens the doorway for others to do so as well. And I kind of want to like draw this back to the universal yet again. It's like I think anyone of any life experience can probably map themselves onto this in some way of like, following one path or just kind of being born into one path and knowing nothing else, like a lot of us are born into the medical model as a
Mm.
path. And then bumping up against like, oh, this doesn't really completely fit all the parts of me, and then finding something else that feels like a better fit. And it's like, oh, this is so wonderful. And then it's like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just feel like complete belonging and acceptance and congruence with this, this new group and this new established mentality. And then there's that like that point where it's like, do I choose belonging or do I choose myself? And are those in fact two opposing choices?
I love this question. I have thought about this so much. The way you put it. I love it because there is so much. I'll speak for myself from my own experience from very, very early on. It was kind of like this idea of, first of all, not being believed, but also I was 16 and kind of got conditioned into this idea of friends can't handle this. I have to kind
Yeah.
of make it look like I'm fine. I have
Yeah.
to act like I'm fine. And then later, many years, fast forward many years, I think a lot of it was also what I was experiencing. My pain was often invisible. And there's a way in which I think I tried to live up to the lie of like, "You look fine. You
Yeah.
must be able to do XYZ because you look fine." And, um, I think living up to that was again, like, putting myself into hiding and into this kind of, like, pretend land space.
Yeah.
And I think early on I thought, well, to have connection and belonging, like, authenticity just has to be a casualty, you know? And I can't do
Yeah.
both. And I really felt that for a long time, and I have evolved into this place now where I'm like, "No, wait a minute. It's not that authenticity precludes connection and belonging. It's a prerequisite for true connection and true belonging." And that has been so so mind-blowing and revelatory and, like, such a game changer for me because it opened me up to realize, and I hope your listeners can relate, this idea of, like, if I am authentic, if I dare to be vulnerable and authentic and visible and trust myself to be out there as my real self, that is the thing that opens me to real connection and real belonging, and that's powerful.
Yeah. Like if we find belonging as a costume that we're hiding inside, like who actually is it that belongs in
Yeah,
that belonging?
exactly.
I
That
wrote down one, like a thing you said, because it just so captured something that is so relatable to, I think, anybody to have connection and belonging. I thought that authenticity had to be a casualty. I, I think probably most everybody has experienced that or is experiencing that in some way.
Mhm.
Um, so I mentioned earlier you recently gave this incredible, beautiful interview on the Curable podcast, Like Mind, Like Body, and you really stepped into a leadership role in the way that you showed up because you did show up as yourself. You presented your lived experience as it is, not hidden, not trying to conform to what is, really like there. there is an understandable effort within that world to really sell this idea to the general public that neuroplastic pain exists, meaning pain that is purely related to the mind body connection, and that kind of pain can be resolved. But
Mhm.
in going against the mainstream to convey that message, there's it almost feels like you're not allowed to talk about any other kind of pain. You're not allowed to talk about pain that's caused by structural issues or other things. Um, and so, it really, from the outside, kind of looked like, I don't know if an act of rebellion is accurate, but like it could be perceived that way. Like it looked like a risky thing to do. What were the feelings you had leading up to it? Like, did you have hesitation? Was this a long time in the making? How did you prepare for it? How did you move through the fears that I do know were present?
Yes. Oh my god, so scary because first of all, as you said, I work with Curable. I'm a speaker there. I do lots of things with Curable, and I am truly so in gratitude because I do feel like they saved me at a time in my life that I needed those things, and I think I've been trying and pushing hard, against some of the more, dogmatic pieces of the paradigm, and it's been so scary because I again, I I love this work and I love this field, and I feel like there's a blind spot that's hurting people.
And then I know you feel you're tapped into it because it impacts you personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that I think in images, so I was thinking about, like, so many people think about healing in this way that and I hope this is relatable to your listeners as well, like, sort of healing in this broader sense, so many of us are on a healing path of one kind or another, and I think I used to think of it kind of like a river, like, I'm in the middle of this raging river, and I was over there, and I gotta get over there, I gotta get to the other side, right? Like, and I'm like, I gotta get out of the river."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see it that way, that there's, if you could, the idea of recovery, in this particular mind body space is in tune with that. It's like you wanna get to the other side, and then you can start
Yeah.
living your life. And I'm like, "Hold up, that does not work for me because I'm realizing the river is life. The river is healing. That's my healing path. I wanna learn how to navigate the river, how to surf the river, how to trust myself to be in it, and I don't wanna get to the other side. I'm not ready. That's sort of like that's death over there, right? Like, I have a lot left to live, and I feel like that has become a very helpful image in my own mind, that I want to share with others because I think we sometimes, no matter whether it's physical or whatever kind of healing, tend to want to put our lives off until we get to
Yeah.
XYZ. And I'm here to say, like, please, please don't put off your life. Just you can live it now in spite of whatever is going on.
I love that so much, and I'm gonna share how I personally relate to that. So, for a long time, my energy and attention was very consumed with, what I described as, like, recovery journey from chronic migraine. Um, and and I'm in a totally I happen to be in a totally different place now, um, pain-wise, symptom-wise, and, it's not the, like, 100% pain-free promise that maybe I was going for back then, and I'm okay with that. But that anyway, that was, like, something that I was very consumed with for a period of time, and then, um, things moved to a place where that was no longer a big, part of where my attention is going, and then building a business that I love and can thrive in became a big focus of my attention. And in both of those experiences, I have felt at various times myself get very caught up in that river idea of like, oh, I just have to get to the other side and then I'll feel better. And then everything about my life will be better. And,
Yeah.
then things will be good. And in both scenarios, and I hope listeners are relating this to whatever scenario is relevant to you. In these, very different scenarios, the same thing I found has been true is that it's not that I don't want to make progress. I do. I do. Like my aim is growth and forward motion. And if I can only love myself when my business is going gangbusters or when my body feels pain-free, that's a really, really narrow place to try to live, and it's
Yeah.
not livable.
Yeah.
And I've had to, and this is not a one and done, like it's a practice of coming back to this yet again and again and again of reminding like, oh, that's right. Can I love myself with however I'm feeling right now, with wherever my business is at right now, with whatever is true right now? Can I love myself in this moment? And that is the way forward for me. A quick pause here because I want to invite you into something that I think could shift the way you feel about showing up. If you're a sensitive creative or entrepreneur, and the idea of being really seen and heard brings up fear, resistance, or that, oh no, not me feeling, you are in good company. My free visibility workshop, Let Yourself Be Seen, is all about making visibility feel safe to your nervous system and true to you. We'll explore how to work with fear as a doorway into more authentic self expression so you can share the work that matters most to you without pushing, pretending, or burning out. You can save your spot or catch the replay at annaholtzman.com/be seen. Okay, let's get back to the conversation.
I relate to that so much, Anna, because uh, how can I love myself through anything? How can I love myself in spite of anything? And I just want to give a little shout out to my partner and his kids because finding them has been really meaningful. And I feel like they have modeled unconditional acceptance. I'm going to get teary of me. And sorry. Oh, they're gonna hear this.
I relate as a stepmom too. This is one of those synchronicities we've connected on.
It is, there it is, exactly. So if you're just listening, I am tearing up here, that's okay. Um, I feel like they have modeled for me this sort of unconditional love and acceptance, and I think that has helped me come to a place where I am trying, and it's a work in progress, it's a practice, like you said, but I'm trying to give that to myself. And if I can give one image that has helped me or come to me recently, and this is sort of in the, if any of you out there think about, parts and IFS and all of that kind of stuff, there was an image that came to me of like myself as a really little girl, like in this sort of like basement prison, like all in the corner, like huddled up,
Yeah.
like, huddled and looking ashamed and stuff, and I felt like my work now is to go down and open the door and go hug her and say, "I'm sorry. Like, I know other" sorry, I'm getting teary. Oh, "I know that you were put down here first by other people and systems, but then I kept you down here, and I felt ashamed." But the true shame is, my erasure of you, and, sort of like, I'm here now, and I wanna love you through no matter what we are going through.
I'm so moved by that. I'm moved in just like empathically connecting to you and also empathically connecting to me because and this is why, I just love having conversations with you. there are these synchronicities that we share, and so, like, what your share picked up for me is we you and I both are, with partners who have kids from previous relationships, and I really struggled with that role for a long time, and I've come a long way with it, but I still, uh, tear up, like, it's this funny thing where it almost feels painful in an odd way for me to hear my husband tell me that me just existing is like a gift to this family and to his daughter, and I think it's like it's something that I love to hear, but it's almost painful to take it in because it shines a mirror on how hard I can be on myself, on how, um those unconscious voices telling me that I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And who doesn't relate to that? I feel like there are very, very few who really grow up with that truly unconditional base of love and acceptance. And societally, so many of us get that message of, you're too much, you're not enough, you're not good enough. You have to do XYZ before I can love and accept you. And those messages are so, again, I keep using that word, but it feels emotionally violent to that inner Elizabeth Gilbert calls them our littles, like our
Yeah.
little souls inside. It's like there's some emotional violence done to our littles when, it's just so anyway, I relate to everything you're saying. Yeah.
Um, I wanna come back in the narrative to how did you prepare for this interview? Because, like, it does feel risky to bring a new stream into the conversation, like, in an established field, group, environment.
Yeah, I wanna read a quote, if I may. This is, Anais Nin or Nias Nin, I may be mispronouncing, um, because this does it all. "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And for me, that's what happened. I think it became too painful to keep hiding. And one thing that was interesting is that so I went to the conference of this mind body field this fall, and I'm the only person on crutches there, right? And they're speaking to us. And one of the presenters said, "I just want everyone to give a round of applause. You have healed yourselves and you have recovered." And I
Mm,
wanted to throw my crutch in the air and be like, "You do not speak for me," and
yeah, yeah,
I it was so jarring, and I think that was, like, the risk to keep hiding, the pain of that became more painful of than, coming in to do an interview like I did on, like, Mind Like Body, and I'm so grateful that Curable has been open and welcoming to my voice, and it's really incredible. But I was scared, I was really
yeah,
scared, and I think there was something about that moment where I was like it almost made me mad, and it did make me mad when I was in the audience and I'm the only person on
yeah.
crutches, and I'm thinking like, I don't this doesn't fit me, this narrative, and I can't keep trying to fit and shape shift myself into it. I need to break out of it.
Yeah. I love thank you for that description, like, that whole narration and that quote from Anais Nin. Again, like, I think everyone knows that feeling, and maybe there are listeners who are in that feeling right now of, like, the uncomfortable bud that it's, like, overdue for it to bloom and show itself more fully, but it's there's a lot of very understandable fear there, and there is real risk. Um, for those listeners, like, I'd love to hear from you, like, how did you prepare yourself or work up to it? I know what I won't bring these stories in because 'cause it'll just take us in too many different directions, but I've shared with you, like, some experiences of my own that, it was like, "Oh, that I relate to this part of it," and I know I've prepared in ways, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, by, like sharing with one really trusted person first, kind of like testing the waters, sort of a graded exposure approach.
Yes. Yeah, sorry you keep asking me that question. Yeah, I think preparing was very much like that. It was, speaking with trusted friends, but also the lived experiences of my clients, like over and
Yes.
over and over again, it was validation. And I remember I was teaching a group, and I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I said to them something that has been helpful to me lately is saying to myself, I believe you.
Yeah.
And we talked about self-trust, and, like, all that we're talking about, and a lot of them started to cry, and I was like, this isn't just
Mm,
for me, like, I think that helped me prepare and have the
yeah.
courage to step out.
Yeah, I feel like like you anchored yourself in your why,
Yeah.
which is something that anybody can take and like tap into in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just was, like, steeped in my own why because
Yeah.
I felt during the interview, and I absolutely loved my conversation with Christie Uipi, who's such an amazing interviewer.
Yeah.
I was out of my body, speaking of the body, like, I was just, like, so nervous and so because it is scary, and, like, again, like, your
Yeah.
listeners can relate in whatever, realm that they are risking exposure and being authentic and being vulnerable, like, I just wanna say, like, so far anyway, the water's warmer on this side. It's like
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
just amazing how liberatory it has felt to me since. So yeah, so
Yeah.
I hope that can be, hopeful for your listeners too.
I am sure it will be, and I'll just name like the way I'm reading that on a like you can use this too in your own way to the listener as like you connected with a bridge person, like someone who could be an ally to you, who is also part of like that established field, that world, um, but who could be like a safe bridge.
Yeah.
And I also picked up on, there was a certain amount of like co-regulation with her, even as you were having the conversation on the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. I felt it during, and she kept describing that she was having a body buzz while we were
Yeah.
talking. I felt that too, and I do think there's something about it's electrifying to really, like, it to really come out truly, authentically myself and all my views, my perspective coming from my lived experience, and there's something really, like I didn't expect it, honestly. I just felt like, "Wow, it is so much better to not hide," to not you know
Yeah. I wanna go into that now since I mean, that's where we are, right, in this story. I remember I reached out to you right after I listened to the interview, not long after it had come out, and I was like, "This is amazing. I just wanna" I have so much admiration, and I'm so moved, and we pretty quickly got on the phone with each other and had the most, like, inspiring mind, body, and soul expanding conversation.
Oh,
Um, and we talked a little bit about like what your experience has been like on the other side of that interview coming out. And I'm sure it's continuing to evolve by the day. Like what has your experience been so far on the other side of it? Has it been all like easy breezy, like just all like jumping up in the air? Have there been waves of different feelings? And I think this can be really valuable for listeners to hear just
oh.
to get a sense of, their circumstance is probably not the same as the one you're moving through. Their experience may not be the same, but just to hear one person's version of what this could feel like.
Yeah, and like you said, there are many layers of feelings. I would say the dominant one still feels like liberation. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I have allowed myself to be seen, because I feel like a lot of the
Yeah.
hiding and stuff like that was not on purpose, this was not conscious, but, like, a lot of it over time, I think, you know, I was making myself feel unseen, and there's something about saying, "You know what? This is my experience. This is it. This is
Yeah.
me, and here I am," and there's something about that obviously is terrifying,
Yeah.
terrifying, but also, on the other side of it, I think partly because I've gotten feedback from people who felt, even though again our stories are different, have felt that similar thread of I hadn't felt seen, and hearing this new story, this new kind of narrative, I did feel seen, and that to me felt so good and like so validating and has helped me ride through. I'll tell you that I'm trying social media again and I'm oh, it's so amateur hour over here. It's so it's so bad. It's so bad, but I every time I hit post, I'm like, "Oh god, I wanna delete it." And what helps propel me through anyway is this why, this mission, and I want other people to feel not alone, to feel accompanied, through what can be such, like you said, a really scary process of
Yeah.
being authentic and visible. And I don't know, I think those are the primary feelings. And then the last thing I'll say on that, which is so funny, you and I talked about this, but I was so driven the very next day I got my nose pierced. I was like,
Right. Yes. Oh, cute.
it's, I have wanted to do that for like literally decades. And I'm like, I'm doing it today. It was the day after the podcast. I'm like, I don't care what else is happening. I'm going today. And I thought about it and I'm like, how perfect is that? Like my body has been marked, my life has been marked like, externally, through not my choice. This was my choice. This is me taking my power back. I'm narrating
Yeah.
my story. And there was something about that that's just like, here it is. It's a visibility thing, right? And it's helping me stay the course, I think,
Yeah.
in a strange way with a nose pierce. So, yeah.
I love that so much. Like, there's just such a I can feel, like, in my body, just this kinda, like, whoosh of, like, that liberation feeling you're describing, and I can relate to it, in my own experiences, my own circumstances, moments when I've felt like, "Screw it." Like, I can't keep trying to pretend or hide in order to, because 'cause I'm scared of losing connection. Like, I just here I am, screw it. I have the way I've described it is, like, on the other side of it, yeah, it's scary, and, yeah, I have these moments of contraction where I'm like, oh, do I really wanna say that?" But in general, I feel 10 feet taller, like, I feel like my spine expanded or something.
True. True. I recently had lunch with my mom. It was just like a couple days after the podcast came out. And noticed I felt taller and I was making eye contact in this
Mm,
really strong way, and I was talking to the people in the cafe in this very different for me kind of way, and
yeah.
I'm like, "Wow, this
Yes.
unleashed something in me. This helped unleash this kind of like, I don't know, this more some power inside of me that I didn't know was there."
I feel like it changes something like, my experience was I felt like when I've had there are a couple experiences that stand out for me in this mode, and I felt like there was a physiological change. Not that, not that I was literally 10 feet taller, but I felt different in my body. I'm not sure how else to describe it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I talk about somatic feedback a lot with clients where it's sort of like your body will be a messenger for you. It's like it's a guide, it's a teacher, it's a wayfinder, and it will give you like kind of like bodily physiological feedback around whatever you're facing or thinking about. And I think that's what I'm noticing right now is like my somatic feedback is like, "Wee!" I'm so
Yeah.
excited and feeling, I mean, not just that, but feeling more grounded in myself and more almost like I have given myself the permission just to be, you know,
Yes.
as I
Yeah.
am.
I'm curious about like the what the social experience has been on the other side of it because like I wanna be very honest about the fact that, you know, there are many experiences people can have where it feels worth it to let themselves be seen, and then there is social fallout on the other side, friends disown you, family members disown you, like, that is a thing that can happen, and, um there are ways to, we can choose to navigate that or we can choose to keep hiding because that just feels too scary and there's no value judgment on it whatsoever. But I'm
Mhm.
just curious what your social experience has been so far on the other side. What if anything did you anticipate and how has it actually been?
It's interesting that you say that. There has been social fallout, but it hasn't been around the podcast, conversation per se. I think, like, the iceberg analogy, like,
Yeah.
this process has been coming along for me, especially in the last year, when I've had a really, really serious and disabling, uh, we'll just say pain and complications. So I think it's changed for me in the last year. And what I've noticed, I have had social fallout. The more I started to step into my own power, I guess you might say, my own voice, the more I said, this is who I am, like, this is what
Yeah.
I will accept and what I won't. I have lost friendships in the last year, and it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, people I
Yeah.
love dearly, and it's not around, the podcast per se, obviously, but all of the changes that have led me to that place have been going on for a little bit, and I think I guess how I talk to myself about it, because it is heartbreaking sometimes when we lose people that can't fit
Yeah.
anymore. It's
Yeah.
it's very painful, and I keep trying to tell myself, I have to be true to myself because the connections that I want going forward have to be in alignment with that, authentic, vulnerable, visible self. And if people or things or whatever fall away from that, it's a little bit like radical acceptance, like, so be it. Like, maybe,
Yeah.
like, I wanna know if people like me, that they like me,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's me, and that it's true connection and belonging.
I really appreciate that you're naming both, like, you're not denying the heartbreak of it. It's not, it's not a message of like, well, then just screw them. Like,
No.
there's there's grief, there's heartbreak, and it's okay to name that. And there are the the agreements you've made with yourself that you're following.
Yeah. And I feel like that little girl in the basement prison, like, I feel like I just am breathing now. This is my somatic feedback. I just took a big breath. I feel like she's breathing. Like, I feel like she's, like, she's
Yeah.
supposed to be like, "Oh my god, you don't see me as shame. Like, I'm not shame anymore. Like, you love me." Like, it sounds so
Yeah.
cheesy, and, like, in prior years, I would be like, "What, Lara, are you talking about?" But there's something really profound about coming back to oneself and opening that door and saying, "I see you. I'm sorry I locked you up in here, and come out. I wanna be here with you. I wanna listen to you. I wanna honor your wisdom because that's really where the wisdom is."
I am so touched and inspired by you as a person, by our friendship, by the piece of your story that you're sharing with us today. I'm so grateful. And I just love knowing you. It's just a real bright spot in my life. Um, for this conversation, we're at that time where we're going to wind down into the three questions I always ask guests in conclusion. Is there anything that you wanna bring in before we go there, or does it feel like a good time to
I
shift?
think it feels like a good time, yeah.
Okay. So, the first of these questions is if there is a soapbox message to the work that you do at this present stage in time,
Yeah.
um, What would that message be?
I keep coming back to this, but loving your littles, loving your inner self through your passage through the river of life,
Yeah.
like we're never gonna get to the other side like we think we are, and can we trust ourselves to be here and love ourselves through that, as messy as that is, as sometimes as frustrating and uncertain and scary and sad and all the things, like, however it is, can we really be there and see ourselves? Because we all need to feel we are not alone and we are seen, we are heard, we are listened to, we are our voice is honored, and so that's my work these days.
I love that. Oh, um, and it's very much applicable to any listener in any stage or walk of life.
Yeah.
Um, to the listener who is hearing that message, whether they're relating to your story in like very specific ways or they're relating in a broader sense to wanting to bring more love and acceptance and care to that true part of themselves inside. Um, but maybe they're also feeling, I don't know, imposter syndrome, not knowing where to start, wondering if it's even worth taking a first step when they don't know what the hell that first step should be. What words of encouragement do you have to that person?
Oh my gosh, I feel you, I feel you, I feel you. It is hard and it is scary, and imposter syndrome is real, but I do think that other people are a big part of the healing puzzle, especially for those of us who have had a social piece of the trauma in our lives. When it's been social, the healing needs to be social too. So I encourage everybody to just find at least one person you can be true and authentic, truthful, visible, all the things, safe, feeling like you can be there with them and they can be there with you. Like even just one person, because I think it can help to have another being reflect back, no, like, no, honey, you're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, I really feel that. And it just takes so much of the pressure off that I think we put on ourselves to navigate it all on our own.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. It's just really unrealistic.
Oh,
And connecting with another person can be really beautiful.
yeah.
And finally, where can folks find your work? I know, this there may be quite a lag time between when we are having this conversation and when it is released. So you may be doing different things by that point, or it whatever. But I know there are places where folks can find you and check into what you're offering, um, and whatever you'd like to share about that.
Yeah. Well, most likely in the lag time, I won't, go off and join a circus or anything. So
Yeah.
you can find me at thesagepractice.com. The Sage Practice, SAGE is self-trust, agency growth, and engagement. I work with clients on all those things. I have self-paced courses to kind of help people through that empowerment process, and somatic tracking and guided meditation recordings, things like that. And I work with people one on one and in groups. And I just, I mean, it's probably clear by now. I'm very passionate about this work and wanting to be there for people who may feel otherwise alone. And I feel like we are really all fellow travelers on this healing path. And it's, we need to be there for each other.
And if someone wants to get a first taste of your work or explore working with you, what's the best way to start? Would it be just reaching out and sending an email, or what would be the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. I have I have so many things on my webpage, different kinds of services like the course and this and that, all these things. So whatever appeals to you, but also I love hearing from people. So you can always just email me, just reach out and we can find what might work best for you at that moment in time.
Yeah. And I encourage folks to reach out, and you will receive a reply from a real human being, which is getting to be more and more rare these days.
I promise. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lara, thank you so much. I just so appreciate who you are. I'm so grateful to have you as a friend, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Me too, and I didn't know I was gonna cry with you today, but there it is.
Oh,
That's our friendship and our I just love it. So thank you so much for having me today.
thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.